This is You the People. Each week, we three Canadians talk about you, the people. Your politics, your political system, your hair-dye dripping American mayors, and yes, your ongoing election. With me, as always, Corey Hogan, Stephen Carter. Guys, what's going on?
Are we getting scared yet? Is this starting to worry us?
Yeah, define this.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
I don't know.
The whole thing. I mean, last week I was not worried, and this week I am worried because obviously last week I predicted everything would be okay, and I think I see my mistake now.
Yeah, it was
my mistake.
You predicting that everything was going to be okay.
Made an error.
I don't know, Corey. I'm going to turn that around on you. Are we scared of everything?
Well, listen, I think this is exactly what we expected they would attempt. The fact that the Republican Party, by and large, continues to stand next to this guy is alarming. But I was actually talking about Clay Thompson.
Okay, because I was like, this is what I was going to say, because if we're scared, we should be scared that Kyrie Irving could be the star of the Houston Rockets, and I'm not sure I love that. I'm not sure I love him being the leader of a team again. And I know, Carter, you don't love that either. You have been a outspoken detractor of leaving Kyrie on his own island.
Listen, but it's the Rockets,
his flat earth,
so it doesn't matter at all.
His own flat earth, sorry, I should just say.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Rockets.
I was going to say, he's a flat earther.
Come on, what is this? What is the early 2000s? Come on.
Carter, any comments on Klay Thompson?
I don't know who Klay Thompson is.
Okay, well.
I'm just so upset right now.
Yeah, it is. We should be scared. We should be scared. The NBA season is starting. Klay Thompson will not be playing this year, Carter. It's a big deal. I wish you could just have some level of interest in Corey and I's interests so you can talk about it. But you just don't. Each week.
Stephen, I just want you to know this kind of obliviousness you carry on about basketball. That's how most of the world is with politics. And when you're talking, what we sound like to you is what you sound like to them. So
yeah, but they're not listening to the podcast, right? The people listening to the podcast are the people who care about politics. If they cared about basketball, they would listen to two smart people discussing basketball. Instead, they've got you two. So, you know, the politics is why they're here. They're here for me, guys. They're not here for you.
Listen, I control the feed and I control all of the artwork. And I think Hoops the People is making a debut tonight. I think that's what's about to happen.
Yeah, we're going to go an hour straight on hoops. Let's move it to our headlines. Guys, are you ready?
Yepers. What could possibly be in the headlines today, Zane?
We
Nothing.
got several things. We got 4 of them. We'll start with this one. This one comes to us from NPR. Charles Koch has regrets. In a rare interview, libertarian billionaire concedes that his GOP activism has barely deepened American divisions. Guys, he has a bit of regret. The fact that his billions and billions of dollars to GOP and Republican causes may have caused a bit of a dent in the fracturing America faces. Stephen, do you have sympathy for Charles Koch?
I mean, the poor little fella. I mean, there's always unintended consequences from all of our actions, you know, like the time we hired you at H&K and all of a sudden now we're doing a podcast forever. I mean, who knew, right? I mean, who knew that would happen? That's an unintended consequence we did not foresee. The thing that kills me is they're still doing it. They're still investing money in their conservative causes, even though Charles Koch has this sense of regret. So he may have a sense of regret, but he doesn't have the sense to stop it.
Corey.
Well, I, for one, am shocked that corrupting the electoral system and funding misinformation had consequences that he doesn't entirely love. You know, I guess better luck next time, Charles. Who could have seen it? I mean, this is one of those innocent mistakes that any one of us could have made.
Yeah.
When we're trying to purchase a democracy, you just don't know that something bad's going to happen as a result of that. It's just unforeseeable.
Yeah, you just don't realize the other actors or the ramifications of your actions. You just sometimes get blinded with the purchase and the transaction. I see it. It happens all the time.
Well, you get a butterfly effect, and before you know it, Kyrie Irving is the talent on Houston, and he's pushing flat Earth views that have probably been funded by one of your think tanks somewhere down the road. It's all together. It's a rich tapestry.
Yeah, no, it's well done, Corey. Carter, any thoughts on Klay Thompson before I move on?
Yeah, I've developed several.
Okay, good. I'm glad you've developed several. Speaking of which, our next headline comes to us from Vulture. Behold our tragic pandemic Christmas tree. The Rockefeller Christmas tree has arrived in New York. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but it has arrived in 2020 fashion, which is two things. Number one, it looks like dog shit. And number two, there was an owl that traveled with the tree that then had to be saved. In a metaphor for 2020, the tree was leaning against 30 Rockefeller Plaza for about 4 hours today, before it was trying to be erected, and a couple of branches and the bottom fell off. Just a perfect, I mean, this is the type of story we need to cover here, and I'm really drawing the context. But Stephen, I'll let you jump on this first.
The decline of American civilization isn't only seen in their presidents. Their Christmas trees reflected as well. I'm sure it'll look great once they put all the electronics on it. The Americans are good at overdoing decorations, so I'm sure it'll look much better once the decorations hold it together, as mine do. I mean, as Klay Thompson's knee injury will, later, with the benefit of hindsight, it will look much better. The Americans will make everything look better.
This is like an advertisement for stupid people in Google. It's great.
Oh, it's an Achilles tendon. Shit. Oh, that's the worst.
Corey, any comments on the tree?
Have you ever purchased a Christmas tree? Like, this is it actually going to end up looking like this? I'm not 100% convinced it will, and not just for the reasons that Carter said. But you buy it, you take it home, it looks like shit for a couple of days until all of the branches come down and sort of rebalance because it was left on its side in your car. And I don't know, maybe we've just never really looked at the Rockefeller Plaza Christmas tree before it looks pretty. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's just peak 2020. Can't say yet.
Yeah, this does not look like the Home Alone tree. This does not look like the tree that we're used to seeing outside of SNL on a Saturday basis. So I'm going to just say it looks like shit this year. They've chosen a shitty tree for a shitty year. And we'll leave that there. All right, let's go to our next headline. Our next headline comes to us from The Independent. And Corey, I'm going to get your reaction first because this continues our fourth week in a row of stories about the most important elements of this election. A new petition calls for Four Seasons total landscaping to the National Register of Historic Places. Corey, I know this podcast doesn't have advertising, but if it could, we would be advertising for Four Seasons total landscaping every single week. But now we've got a cause. We've got a cause, and that cause is to ensure that the National Register of Historic Places really pays respect to the historical significance of Four Seasons total landscaping.
Oh, I think I'm all in. This will provide it those protections that are necessary to make sure that they never fix the hose, they never paint the wall, they never clean up the yard. We need to keep it in the pristine state, almost like when you go to, Fort Calgary and you get to see what things were like in frontier times. Let's make sure that this little piece of Americana never goes away. Let's Norman Rockwell this shit. Let's make sure that it always stays as it was in our memories on that fine, glorious day when the American democracy gasped its last breath, and Rudy Giuliani introduced us to a sex offender and the flimsiest legal case I've ever heard.
Carter, any thoughts on ensuring that an American heritage site gets the respect that it deserves?
We remember where American presidents laid when they died. And this is where this is where the Trump presidency died.
It is true. The results of the Biden win were announced while Giuliani was having his press conference. So
it's like one of my favorite parts about this. He's like, well, somebody says like, well, they called it. He's like, who called it?
Who called it?
They like the networks. Which networks?
Oh,
all of them. And then you see him take like a half-second beat. He's like, all of them. And then he's like, oh my goodness, all of them. Well, who cares? We're not a democracy now. But you saw the moment of literal, recognition creep over his face. It was pretty amazing.
Carter, are you offering here and now to start the Kickstarter to be the sponsor of the Kickstarter for the presidential tombstone for Donald Trump's campaign to be placed at Four Seasons Total Landscaping?
Oh, it's already in. It's been kickstarted. It's already up. We're 128% on Kickstarter right now. So I'm currently trying to find a bigger tombstone. It's going to be the biggest. It's going to be the greatest tombstone. It'll be there forever, and people will revere it because it's going to be the best. It's going to be the very best.
Zain, 20 years from now, school children will be able to recite which Wemyss symbols were on the side of that building. It's a big deal, and it should absolutely be a historic site.
I'm glad to get your endorsement. Finally, let's go to this one from Vanity Fair, hot off the press. Rudy Giuliani's hair dye melting off his face was the least crazy part of his batshit crazy press conference. I think that sums it all up, but let's spend a bit of time on this. Corey, first question, did you get a chance to watch this thing? Or the highlights?
No. I mean, I did what I think most sane people would do, which is, stare at the sun through glasses. I looked at it and the news rather than you can't just take a straight dose like that. It'll kill you. It's got to be adulterated by something. But the sweaty, clips of his hair dye just running down his face are really kind of great meme bait. The guy continues to deliver in that sense. Just when we got over the fact that he was tucking in his shirt, now we can show him melting like the Nazi at the end of the Last Crusade. So I hear that it was pretty unhinged. I think that that's probably something we're going to talk a little bit about, the Trump legal strategy here. But the fact that at this point they're not even being coy about it. They're talking about wanting to overturn this election by basically any means they can, and they have all of these paths because they've got all of these potential Republicans they can lean on and have, President Trump bring to the White House. And it's a problematic time. And the fact that a guy could give a presentation like I understand he gave and not be immediately put into a straitjacket and taken away is probably the most damning indictment.
Yeah, it was quite the 90 minutes, and it was 90 minutes, spearheaded with Rudy Giuliani yelling about election results, saying that he could prove it 18 ways, quoting lines from My Cousin Vinny out of context, I believe the 90s movie, accent and all, and then saying he'd had 18 different ways to prove that Trump won Pennsylvania by 300,000, won Michigan by 50,000. Spoiler alert, Carter, at the 90-minute mark, he did not even prove one of the 18 ways he claimed to be able to show that this election was stolen from Donald Trump. What are you making it? Did you see it yourself? I'm curious if you saw the highlights or you saw it yourself, and maybe striking a little bit more of a serious tone, because Rudy Giuliani is so easy to make fun of, as we constantly do. Is this worrying you, despite the fact that they've got the world's stupidest lawyer running the legal strategy? Is this actually worrying you now, Carter?
Well, I mean, we're watching the polling change. A number of Americans who accepted that Joe Biden won a week ago or 10 days ago was over 70%. And it's gradually going down. The number of Republicans who now believe that the election was stolen is over half of Republicans. And it's going up. You repeat a lie often enough and people remember it and believe it. And it's really weird because if you want to believe a lie, you don't even have to trust the messenger that's bringing it to you. We used to think that, you had to have something vaguely resembling credibility in order to bring a lie that people would listen to and understand. But now we've proven with Rudy Giuliani that you don't have to bring anything vaguely resembling competence. It was incompetent today. I mean, I can't remember the woman's lawyer's name who said, you don't understand the process if you think that we have to prove this. What the fuck? Like, the legal process is based on truth. They've been saying different things in court because you're not allowed to lie in court as officers of the court. I'm shocked that Rudy Giuliani has the faculties to discern truth from fiction. But here we go. I mean, he's standing up there. He's lying. He's undermining the results of the election. And far too few Republicans are standing up and refuting him. The Republican GOP chair in Utah just sent out a note saying that this all has to be slowed down. I mean, Georgia's supposed to ratify their results tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. This is supposed to be all but over by Monday. And these guys are throwing every Hail Mary that they have. Granted, terrible Hail Marys, unlikely to succeed, but still are undermining the core of democracy in what's supposed to be the greatest democracy on earth.
let me transition this to our first segment. You need a solid transition game. And I want to talk about Joe Biden's transition game. Once again, basketball reference, Carter, you're going to have to be up on this. I want to talk about Biden's transition game, but I want to actually start with what I led with Carter at the end of the headlines. Corey, are you actually worried? Now, you led the podcast saying, are we actually worried? Knowing the level of incompetence, how easy it is to make fun of the both the legal approach and the legal characters, so to speak, right? The multitude of characters that are part of this. Maybe not even putting that aside, but even with that in context, are you actually worried at this point in time?
Well, yeah, I am. I mean, I still think the balance of probabilities is that Biden becomes president and we get to move on with our lives. But listen, those probabilities that is not the outcome, maybe they're in the single digits right now, and that's way too high. We've got a situation where the Republican Party is being pressured big time by a base that is being fed a whole barrel of lies by a president that is essentially saying this election is being stolen. And I mean, fundamentally, that's dumb to me. Like, why do people think this is stolen? Because Biden won just as all the polls said he would? Like, what is your canary in the coal mine here? Literally everybody was calling this, whether they were a partisan pollster or not. It's actually surprising that he didn't win it by as much. But there's this weird logic train that's going on, which is, look at that. The polls were so wrong. Everybody said Joe Biden was going to run away with this thing. And because the polls are bullshit, I think we can all just sort of discount the fact that they thought they won. Like none of it makes any sense here. But there is a bigger point here, which is we tend to look at the Republicans and those who have, I shouldn't say all Republicans, but those, unfortunately, most of them, it seems like, in positions of power, and those who have encouraged Donald Trump. And we always think they would never do that. This is a bridge too far. Have we found the bridge too far?
No,
yet?
no.
The fact that legislatures are now actively talking about, they're right now having conversations 2 weeks ago they all denied they would ever have. And, this notion that maybe there should be a slate of electors that's sent by the legislature. We talked about this last week. This is the existential threat right now. They don't even need to send these legislators for Trump. It's pretty clear to me they are just going for just spoiling the contest and throwing it to the House of Representatives at this point. And that's not impossible. It's still deeply improbable, but it's not impossible.
Carter, what's brought us to this point? I wanted to talk about the Trump legal strategy, which we will. But Corey's picked up on a very interesting point around this line that we've drawn in the sand and said, okay, these assholes will never go here, right? Like, they've done a lot of egregious shit, but they won't do this. And so we talk about them in abstractions, or we talk about them as improbabilities. And Corey, I think you're right. They still are in many ways. But what do you dissect, Carter, that has led these folks down this path going forward and saying, yeah, okay, maybe we do this? Or, us, or some of us, I should say, expecting like a Mitch McConnell to say something, obviously nothing being said, expecting senior Republicans to say something, nothing being said, silence, support, what has kind of led us to this path? What is your diagnosis where these incremental moves and actions by Republican lawmakers, have just kind of supported the president's, crazy agenda?
It doesn't come in one step. Right. You don't immediately just jump into Trumpism. I mean, I return us to just a little over 4 years ago when Lindsey Graham correctly articulated exactly what would happen if Donald Trump became the leader of the Republican Party. He was right. It would mean the collapse of the Republican Party, and they would deserve it. Now they're in it, and Lindsey Graham's own behavior shows what happens to people when they start drinking this particular brand of Kool-Aid. Once you start to go down this path, there is no way out. You don't get to suddenly say, well, this was wrong and we're just going to back our way out. You don't get to, there's no slowly backing towards the door. There's too much at stake. And so every step towards anarchy, you just take it without really realizing where you're going and what the consequences are. I think that the Republican Party knew where they were headed, but they believed in democracy and the democracy of their primary system. And then when they all honestly thought that Trump would just simply lose. And then when he won, they saw the power that wielded, and they just simply slipped into bed with it. And now that you're in bed with this particular corpse, you just don't know how to get out. The corpse is rotting, it's decaying, it's hurting you, and you just can't get out of the bed. I mean, that is exactly where they find themselves today. Just moments ago, Romney has released a statement. Give me a fucking break. You're releasing a statement. Fly to Washington, stand up and say that we must, stand in front of the media, stand in front of all of the cameras of the nation and say what's going on. Or, stop pretending to be a leader, of the free world.
In bed with his corpse. Really, Carter? That's where we wanted to go?
It's a weird metaphor, man.
I think it's exactly right. I think that Trump represents the death of the Republican Party and the death of democracy. And he is slowly rotting. And that rotten just seeps into everything. It seeps into everything, and he is the rotting corpse of democracy. And I stand by it.
Bury him at 4 seasons total landscaping.
Exactly.
As previously discussed. Corey, what is the Trump legal strategy here? Because it seems like, it's right now, it's scorched earth on the legal side of things, right? State and federal courts just throwing out unsuccessful challenges and lawsuits, knowing that they won't go anywhere. Is it to kind of undermine trust in the whole system, scorched earth the democratic institution, or is it beyond that in your mind? How are you kind of assessing what you're seeing as a Trump legal, if I can even put it in air quotes, strategy as you see it right now?
Yeah, the strategy is, especially since Rudy Giuliani took over it is chaos. The strategy is chaos. It's to make the electoral system look like it has fundamentally failed by throwing so many accusations out there that you just start saying, oh my God, what does this mean? How could this possibly be? There are all of these accusations. Something is horribly awry here. There are maybe a couple of legitimate cases that Trump has brought forward. None of them have the ability to overturn this election. All of the activity is designed to create a sense, because Donald Trump is not currently trying to win a legal strategy. He's trying to win a political strategy. Now, where the law is going to come back into it is if he is successful in that intermediate step in getting legislators to vote to send either competing slates, or I guess they'd be competing either way, but a slate that is, either going to abstain or a slate that is going to vote for Donald Trump on the more extreme version of it, that will inevitably be challenged in court.
Yeah.
And then the legal strategy becomes, let's convince the Supreme Court that this is fine. But we're not there yet. His kind of on the ground legal strategy is so scattershot, and it's really just designed to stir up shit, to create muck, to put dust in the air and have everybody feel that something must be wrong, because how could all of these accusations be if there wasn't something wrong? And that is why you're seeing numbers like Stephen was talking about among Republicans. You're seeing this growth of, I think this election went awry. Look at all of these accusations in all of these states. And you know what? It's such a self-serving, self-fulfilling narrative, because these are, and again, like, it doesn't sort of pass that initial sensibility test. They believe this election is stolen because in these Democratic areas, people are voting for Democrats. None of this passes any kind of like basic rational test, but c'est la vie.
Yeah.
That's not the point. The point is to make people just deeply mistrustful of the system.
Carter, I'm going to ask you a kind of crazy question. Despite the lies, the mistruths, this inane strategy that they have, are Rudy Giuliani and the Trump Republicans winning the communications war here? Like, are they doing what the DCCC can't do here, and by a nature of extending and growing the population base that will keep believing that Biden was illegitimately elected? Like, are they winning the outright comms war here despite this atrocious legal strategy?
On the one hand, you can look at Biden's communication strategy. He's put forward his senior staff. He's put forward, some things that he's going to do. It's been pretty normal. Or you can put forward this steaming dumpster fire of shit that is Rudy Giuliani and the legal. I resent the word strategy, Zain. I resent it. It shouldn't be used with this. It's not a strategy. It's chaos. It's lunacy wrapped up in America's mayor. This is desperation, right? This isn't a strategy. So from my point of view, you can't win a strategy with that. Like, a skunk walks into the room, you're not having a beauty contest, right? You can have the best looking dog in the world, but the skunk's gonna make everything stinky. You know who the skunk is?
Is the metaphor engine that is your brain just broken today? Like, what is going on with these?
The skunk, the metaphor engine is working perfectly. The skunk
good,
is
good.
Giuliani. Wherever he goes, he's going to get attention. It does not matter. God, I have to explain everything you do. It's just a little, but instead, this is a fucking gong show. I refuse. Like, he's going to get all the attention because he's a disgusting human being. Unfortunately, recovering the fact that the fucking dye ran down his face instead of what he said, and we should be locking him up for treason.
Carter, to the heart of my question, are they winning the comms war?
Of course they are.
Well, first of all, can we just appreciate Stephen artfully illustrating what losing communications looks like there?
Kick your ass.
Yeah, no, it's don't tell show, and I like how you did that, Carter.
Rotting corpse of Republican democracy. Write it down.
It's making more sense as the time passes. Carter, I don't know if I have a clear answer from you. I just want to know where you stand. Are they winning the comms war?
Of course they're winning the comms war.
And you hate it. You hate him for it.
Fires lead the stories. Deaths lead the stories in the news. Rudy Giuliani leads the stories because it's fun. It's more interesting than Ronald Klain is going to be chief of staff. Big fucking deal. Who cares? Which is the bigger story?
No, I know. There was just a sense of jealousy with that last statement that it wasn't you.
I know. I'm still upset.
Corey, the comms war here, and let's extend it further. DCCC and Biden, should they be doing anything even removed from Biden? Right? This is not about the Biden president. The DCCC, how do they there is erosion happening here, and it's not erosion about Biden not being president, but there is institutional erosion. There's a growing base of the American public. This will make Biden's job harder to bridge the country, as he says. What is the calm sort of response or judo that you would consider if you're on the other side of this?
Well, Donald Trump is not winning the comms war. Donald Trump is winning the comms battle, but he is not winning the comms war.
Explain the difference.
He has managed to get a bit of a Pyrrhic victory with his base, but it's not going to be enough for him to win this election or for him to fundamentally change what has happened here, which is he has lost. And there is a problem that is more systemic. It's more like you've dropped an atom bomb and there's radiation everywhere, right? Joe Biden gets to be the victor, but something more insidious and long-term will be the result of this, right? It's the American democracy that really gets hurt. But Joe Biden is going to end up on top here, almost certainly. We have that single percent that we've talked about here. But I don't know how much credit you can give Donald Trump for spinning up half of the Republican base, which is not all of the people in America. It's not even half the people in America. We're talking about an alarmingly high percent, but it is still very solidly a minority of Americans who feel that this election was stolen.
Corey, I'm going to stick with you. Let's talk about Biden a bit more. Is now the time to have him start ringing the alarm that, this is a transition in jeopardy? They have shown some signs of trying to backfill. Trump's administration is not providing the necessary resources that get unlocked once the president-elect has been officially sort of signaled by the previous administration, which Biden and team have now gone to wealthy Democrat donors to help backfill their transition money, which, by the way, I didn't know you could do that, that you could actually finance a transition. FEC law allows you to finance a transition, which is something I learned, so if you want to comment on that, you can. But Biden is trying to backfill, play it cool, say we need access to information. He's had other people in his administration try to be a little bit more aggressive in breaking down those doors. Is it now time, Corey, for Biden to ring the alarm and say, no, this is a transition that is being threatened, and we need, or to escalate the current situation as the president-elect of the United States?
That's a bullshit question.
Is it? Tell me why.
Because Chevy didn't make it 327 and 55. The 327 didn't come out till 62.
I have no fucking clue.
Never watched the movie.
He's never watched the movie.
What the fuck are we talking about?
That's fantastic. Oh,
what fucking movie is this?
My Cousin Vinny. How do you not know
I haven't
this?
seen it. I haven't seen it. How do you know that line from a movie that
He was reading it. He Googled it.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Is that the one with Joe Pesci? No.
Yes.
It's Joe Pesci.
No, it's not Joe Pesci. It's Benicio del Toro and
Fuck you.
Mary-Kate Olsen.
Wait, go on. Are you pitching me a new movie here? I'm interested.
Directed by the guy who directed.
No, I mean, Zain, it is actually a bit of a bullshit question because it's a no-win for him. Like the problem is, it's almost like a when did you stop murdering that person question, right? Like Joe Biden, if he starts saying this is in jeopardy, I mean, he is just sort of feeding this sense that it is in jeopardy. So he can't take that approach. And there will be people who want him to ring the alarm bell. But the problem is if he rings the alarm bell, people are going to run out of the building. That's the nature of alarm bells. So he's got to continue saying that he is strong and positive and confident, but that's also not something he can do and just sort of sleepwalk into failure either. So, it's a box that he's in, but ultimately,
what you're telling me is it's a perfect question.
No, I mean, it's in a box he's in, but he doesn't want to take either extreme. It's not a binary that's set to him. He doesn't need to react to this frame that it's in, nor should he. So he is doing exactly what he should be doing, which is saying, that's a bullshit reaction by Trump. And it allows him to say both why Donald Trump still lost the election and that he's eroding the election, but it allows him to talk in these hypotheticals like, if Donald Trump continues this attack, he's eroding the American democracy. He's not actually saying that he's going to lose. If you look at what Biden's saying right now, he's talking about those long-term risks. And that is the perfect response. So rather than having it look at like, oh God, if I say something, is this the time to ring the alarm bell about this? No, he can ring the alarm bell about other things. And that's how he can have the same effect. And that is exactly what he should be doing. And that is exactly what he is doing.
Carter, do you agree or do you think this is time for the panic button for Joe Biden?
I think the panic button comes on Monday when you're supposed to have Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all confirmed. But I think the panic button for Corey came when he had alarm bells murdering that person and atom bombs in his analogies, because those all didn't work either. So if we're going to hold me to a new level, I think we have to hold Corey to the same level. So
no, there's a double standard. I think we all appreciate it. It works for me. It works for you.
Carter, did you just lose your train of thought there?
No, I'm done. That was all I had. Yeah.
That's the shortest answer we've ever had on the show from you.
No, we asked when the panic button. Monday.
Yeah.
Monday's
right.
The panic button.
But then to that point, are you escalating rhetoric? Are you escalating what you tell the American people? Or are you sticking to the script of what you've been doing right now?
I'm suing for the right to begin the transition. I'm suing, I can't remember the name of the woman who's in charge of the GSA. But I'm suing to get her to hand over the keys, as it were, to hand over the money, to hand over the access, to hand over the staff, to give us the office space. And I'm suing immediately in federal court to get that done. And if I can, I'm escalating that thing right to the Supreme Court, because by that point, once the states have started to certify the results, there is very little the Supreme Court can do except demand that the GSA hand over to Joe Biden the ability to begin the transition. It's over. Unless
Carter,
those states don't certify the results.
I want to stick with you, Carter, on something, which is there's many elements to the Biden transition, right? We have obviously the work that he's doing on coronavirus. We've got the staff that he is putting in place. We've got his cabinet, which is coming up, and I want to talk about the cabinet in a second. But I want to talk staff for a moment, Carter, and get your take as someone who's been a political staffer who's come from the campaign world, right? You haven't come from necessarily the policy world or the policy shops within government or within even the political staffing side of things, but you've come from the campaign world. Joe Biden has put in his campaign manager, Jen O'Malley Dillon, as his deputy chief of staff. And I'm just curious to get your take from your perspective, the value of, and perhaps even the risk or the downside of having a campaigner or someone with a campaigning background almost exclusively running, strategies, comms for electoral victory in a position of governance. What are the risks and challenges? And I'm kind of curious to hear if you see any for her in this role.
Well, fighters look for fights. So the challenge of putting in a campaigner into the office of the president is that that campaigner is going to be campaigning. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think I've said before that I think that they have to view two 100-day periods, right? The first one in January 2020, and then another one in January of 2022, because that Senate election is make or break for them, as is winning the House of Representatives again. These guys have to do, every decision that is made needs to be put through a campaigning lens. If they're going to have more than a single term in office or a productive term. So they can't go in with this holier than thou type of mentality that Obama had, where, he'll be able to bring people on side. And that's actually one of the great fears of Joe Biden that people had prior to the election. They were going to see Joe Biden as someone who would reach across the aisle and offer his hand repeatedly, no matter how many times his hand is rebuffed. I think everybody expects that their hands are going to be rebuffed. So they're just going to have to They're going to have to be prepared for the fight. And having Jen O'Malley Dillon in there says to me that this is a group that's prepared for the fight.
Corey, same question to you. You've got similar experience having worked in political offices. The assets and the liabilities of having a campaigner within then a governance role in your political office. What do you see it as being?
Well, I've worked in political offices, but I've also worked in the public service for many years. And there are significant differences that you need to be aware of. Politics moves faster. Politics has fewer rules. In politics, you launch an ad by the end of the day on a campaign when you have an idea. In government, it's going to take you 3 months. You need to understand the rhythm of the public service. So the thing is, Zain, campaigns need to work for a year. And in our country, they need to work for 35 days.
Yeah.
They're built for speed, not distance.
Set up, take down.
Right. Yeah, and so are political staff generally. And in the bureaucracy, you need to pace yourself. You need to have some patience. You need to understand that even if in a very command and control environment, there are a million ways the gears can be slowed. And you can never forget it's harder to implement than it is to announce. And where you run into trouble when politicians and political staff get put into these government jobs is they have a propensity to announce and not follow through. They don't appreciate the rhythm of the public service. They don't appreciate that you can't just have 50 announcements in 50 days and say you're done. The work all happens on the back end. And what can sometimes happen is that work catches up to you because those announcements don't turn into action, or that action doesn't have eyes on it, and as a result becomes implemented poorly. So if it's great, have some political staff. They can be a great catalyst for action. They can definitely make you think about whether some of these barriers are just bullshit. But you have to appreciate that some of these barriers are not bullshit. Some of these barriers exist because they make a better product, and you need to have a balance of people on your team. So I hope Joe Biden keeps that in mind.
Well, that's good advice from both of you. I want to talk about his cabinet a bit. There's been recent reporting that Team Biden and the Democrats are worried that the prospect of non-centrist cabinet nominees for passing the vetting process in what's likely to be a Republican-controlled Senate. And on the heels of that sort of mindset that seems to be quite abundant within the Biden team, we're starting to hear that there's a good chance that Warren and Sanders might be frozen out of a Biden cabinet. So I wanted to get your guys' take. Is that a good thing for Biden? Is that a bad thing? Does he need progressive voices, if I can put it in that term, in his cabinet to begin that unity exercise within the Democrats, which we talked about at length last week? I want to get your guys' take both on the two figures that I mentioned, but also more generally about progressives at large within his cabinet. And Carter, I'll start with you. First, let's talk about freezing Warren and Sanders out. Is that okay? Is that a bad move? Good move for Biden? What do you think?
Well, I think that I don't mind freezing out Sanders. I think that he is not as effective in terms of an actual implementation of an idea. I think that Elizabeth Warren has proven to be an effective administrator, to Corey's point about people who know how to work within the bureaucracy, who know how to get things done. She is a star. And I would prefer to put someone like her up and have her fail, than try and find a group of moderates that are going to also fail. If you're going to have someone fail, you may as well have someone of a high point. I don't mind freezing out one of them because, you're not going to put both of them in, but I would rather bring them forward and fail and have the American people judge that failure. I think that Elizabeth Warren, would be very well received by a substantial portion of the population, as a potential cabinet minister, and her failure would be not necessarily bad for the Biden team. I mean, putting both of them forward and having both of them fail might just start to signal that you're out of control. But putting one of them forward and having one of them fail, might be a good message, especially if she's got, I don't remember what kind of strength she had in Georgia, if there was ever any polling in Georgia for Sanders and or Warren, but it'd be interesting to see if that might have any impact on the Georgia special elections.
Interesting. Corey, same question to you. If Joe Biden turns to you and says, listen, I'm thinking of icing both of them out, is that a good idea, Corey? What would you tell him?
Yeah, I think it's fine to ice them both out. I'm not surprised by it at all. He needs a couple of progressives, but he doesn't need those particular progressives. And the reality is, if he's looking to build coalitions with progressives in the United States, he needs to find younger progressives than Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who are both as old as he is. So let's be realistic about their cachet. They are held up as totems for their ideas, but there are other people with those ideas, and that, frankly, is probably in the interests of the progressive wing, too, because, not to be crass about it, but those people will be around longer. And if they can say, yeah, I was Secretary of Labor, that will serve the progressive movement, and give them credibility for a longer period of time than, when Bernie Sanders in 10 years exceeds his life expectancy and is gone. So Joe Biden does need to be somewhat mindful of that balance. He will have people coming at him and saying, you took us for granted. There are going to be midterm elections, of course, in 2022. He's got to somewhat keep the peace, but he doesn't need Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. And there are other things you can give people besides cabinet postings if you want to, give them places of prominence. You could make Bernie Sanders the ambassador to Cuba, for all I care. But there are options. Elizabeth Warren could be given a job in any number of different, departments or locations, given a particularly special office. So he can be creative too, if he feels he needs to find a place for these people. Okay.
We're going to discuss a lot more of the Biden transition as we go week to week, mainly to see how it progresses and what the response or what the driving force of the Trump legal strategy, Carter, is, our legal chaos looks like, and how we end up here. Let's move it on to our next segment. You asked, and he came. Guys, I want to talk about Barack Obama. He's having his week. His memoir got released on Tuesday. He is on every network that you can imagine, did a 60-minute special on Sunday, NPR interview, cover of magazines, doing a sit-down with Oprah. Almost like a celebrity releasing a book. Carter, I want to start with you on this. We talk about political legacies and how they're cemented. And we haven't seen a lot of, for example, George W. Bush kind of come out since his presidency, spending most of his time, watching baseball and painting horrible paintings, which people around him say are beautiful. But what do you think Obama's trying to do here? Am I reading too much into it if I think there's more texture to this than just solidifying legacy and speaking out after the election is over? Or do you feel like there's a strategic play here that Obama's trying to perhaps catalyze a public position, catalyze the next chapter? What are you thinking in your mind?
I tend to be a little bit more crass. I think he's making sure that he's got, he's going to sell 1 million books and he's going to get, $2 million a speech, and he's going to book 6 of them a year or whatever the hell he's going to do. And he's going to make sure that his money train doesn't run out. That's his primary play. There isn't any other play. And it's not the same one that other presidents have done. I mean, Clinton might be the closest because he jumped in, but Clinton and Obama have the same story to a degree. George W. Bush didn't need to make any money when he left office. He'd left office. He had money before he went into office. H.W. Bush didn't need to make money. He had money before. So Clinton and Obama both have the same requirement, which is to make some money. So they're making money. I see that as part of their legacy. They can't just serve on every corporate board in America. So this is how they're making money. I think that for me, that's the Occam's razor of what is Obama doing. He's trying to make money.
Corey, is Obama trying to make money exclusively and singularly?
I'm sure he's happy to make the money, and he'll put it towards causes he cares about. I mean, George W. Bush was rich, but so was Barack Obama. I mean, his books did very well before. Obama's richer than George W. Bush, as far as I can tell. So I don't necessarily buy all of that. A lot of it is really just about legacy. Former presidents are in an interesting position because in the United States, you just have to retire. You don't say, okay, well, I'm done, I'm out. After 8 years, despite being a hell of a lot younger than Joe Biden is, right? He's done. That's it for him in politics. And he gets to spend the next several decades of his life watching people define what his time in office meant. And he has the opportunity to help move that conversation. You think about your time, and you think about how your time is viewed in hindsight. In my opinion, Ronald Reagan was a pretty piss-poor president, but his legacy was written in such a way that he's seen as a saint to so many Republicans. I'm sure many presidents look at that and say, yeah, why not me? Meanwhile, there are presidents who are actually pretty good. And just so it doesn't seem like I'm picking on Republicans, I think George H.W. Bush was not a bad president, but his legacy was written in a different way. Of course, he lost after one term. That hurts. But a lot of it was that he just didn't control the narrative after in the same way that supporters of Reagan helped him control the narrative. I will say, putting all of that aside, the funniest thing about Barack Obama's book, the funniest thing is that The Star, which is a chain here in Canada of newspapers, their headline was kind of a sniffling, sad, Barack Obama's book barely mentions Canada, which
of course
was the most Canadian thing I think possible. And for that reason, though, why are we even talking about this? For shame, Barack.
Yeah, fuck you, man. Fuck you. You don't even talk about Canada. You don't talk about your bromance with Justin Trudeau. Well, you know what? This is only volume 1, and it's 700 pages. So the Lincoln comparisons all of you have at home, put those aside, because this is 700 pages, not 200 some words like the Gettysburg Address. So Obama says perhaps a lot less with a lot more airspace. Carter, I want to talk about political legacies. What are some of the mistakes that politicians make? Is it that they think about legacy too early? Is there a timeline to kind of have, I'm kind of even curious about your personal examples of talking to politicians about their legacy. Presidents are different, but at the same, token, it's the same strategic sort of thinking of saying, you're positioning this self for after you're in office. I'm kind of curious about if you've got any war stories or what you kind of think of political legacy, and maybe is 4 years too little of a time for Obama to kind of come back and start trying to solidify it?
Well, I mean, I think that the biggest challenge with legacy is understanding you don't get to write it. The legacy is written by those around you, your enemies, your opponents, your allies. When you try and write it yourself, you invariably do a poor job of it. So, Obama's doing what he's doing to solidify his legacy. I again come back to making money versus solidifying a legacy, but I think that it's dangerous to do so. I know that when you reach an office, when you reach a high office, you immediately start thinking about what your legacy is going to be, and that's rather foolish. Your legacy is just simply a culmination of the actions that you take and then how we remember them. Corey's mentioned a couple examples of legacies that are rewritten with time. And ultimately, time always rewrites it. Time writes and circumstance writes it. JFK and his assassination is in no small part a large part of his legacy. I mean, the tragedy of an assassination controls the legacy. How is he viewed if he wasn't? How is Ronald Reagan viewed if he doesn't survive his own assassination attempt? These things aren't things that you do, so you don't worry about it. Just instead think of the things that you do worry about, the decisions that you make. Obama's legacy, in my mind, will be forever written by the swings he didn't take, by the things that he didn't achieve. So that legacy, and that's mixed up with how good a public speaker he was, and mixed up with, the first African-American president. It's all going to swirl together. Mm-hmm. And 50 years after he's dead, the legacy will be finished being written.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Carter, right? Because it seems partially Obama's out here to try to sharpen the focus and provide context to some of the decisions he made, and even acknowledging some of the swings he didn't take, or not trying to swing for the fences, to extend the metaphor, on certain issues. Corey, you want to jump in there with a take?
Well, it's important to keep in mind exactly what you said. Presidents use their autobiographies to annotate their time in office and to say the things that they couldn't say when they were still in office. So take it for that, too. We got to see Barack Obama present a certain side to the world, and it was always carefully curated, and that curation is less important now. And there's a different type of curation that's occurring, but it allows him to give some context that was just impossible at the time. Also, JFK, deeply overrated president. I think he would not have been viewed well if he had continued his term.
Hot take near the end of the show, Corey.
Oh no, he's not good.
Let's talk about this as we close this up, because I am interested in this. There's two elements I'm interested in. Number one, I'll kind of give you a preview of my last question, how you use Obama as a political asset in this transition, right? Because we're marrying the timeline of transition, Georgia, et cetera. So we'll leave on that. So I'll give you a bit of time to think on that. But Corey, you've tweaked something interesting to me, which is the curation of Obama's time as president, but now also there's a bit of curation happening now, right? Some of it's legacy oriented, some of it's like culture oriented, right? Who he's talking to, how he's speaking. What do you make of that? What has your analysis been on like kind of how casual and mainstream and kind of pop culture Obama has kind of been on the heels of his presidency, and kind of what do you make of that as a departure from other presidents? It is perhaps more in his swim lane, even while he was in the White House. But I'm kind of curious to get your take about the curation you're seeing of President Obama after the fact.
I don't think this is new for Democratic presidents. Jimmy Carter did an interview with Playboy. Barack Obama is following a proud tradition of Democrats being, pretty pop culture-y. Bill Clinton was on Arsenio Hall, famously played the saxophone. It's what Democrats do, right? They convey kind of less affectation in these positions. Obviously, now we have Trump, who is like the least ceremonial guy in the world. He's just ridiculous. But I think that he sees himself as a man of the people. Just your average Joe with $40 million in the bank. And I think he wants to be seen as a president who was of the people. I definitely don't think he wants to be seen as somebody who was remote or aloof or detached from America.
Carter, I'm going to end with the question I teed up, which is, how are you using Obama right now? He's obviously, one of the most recognized figures in the world, the figure in your party that was trying to deliver Miami, more specifically, and Florida in the last couple of nights of the election, which didn't pan out, as we know. Are you using him in Georgia effectively? Are you using him in transition? There's obviously rumors of, informal advisor capacity. What are you kind of using Barack Obama for if you're Team Biden right now?
I would use him for the Georgia special elections until January the 5th, and then I would say, thank you very much, sir. Off you go. He's not going to help. He might help, inspiring the voters in Georgia, and that could be in his highest use. But there's no two presidents in a presidency. There's one president, and it needs to be Biden. And he can't, if he wants to call up Obama as someone just to shoot the shit with, that's up to him. But there should be no public role outside of the Georgia special election until maybe the 2022 elections roll around again. Let him go do his thing. Let him go do what he does and be the president, Joe.
Corey, what's the Obama utility right now? How are you positioning him if you're Team Biden?
Well, Obama's on a book tour. He wants to go out. He wants to make some bank. He wants to have the publicity. But as much as you can get him, I do think you try to pull him into the Georgia election just because you want all hands on deck for the Georgia election. So if you can do that, you can maybe eke out a couple of points. Maybe you can eke out a win. I think Carter's right.
Doing anything else with him?
Nah, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I don't know that you want to be constantly reminding Americans that there's this big continuity. You want to be your own man.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. We'll leave that segment there and move it on to our final segment, our overrated and our underrated. Stephen Carter, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, well, thank you so
I'm
much,
ready,
Corey.
Zane.
I am going to Carter because it's really about who I asked the question, and I really wanted to give Carter the first go.
I'm not going to let you do that, though.
Okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? I'm just curious.
You'll see.
Okay.
I guess we'll see.
Okay, I'm just a little nervous now. This is a metaphor. I'm the American democracy. You are Trump, and Stephen Carter is Joe Biden patiently not pushing the panic button.
I'm just waiting.
Carter, I'm going to you as the winner of this first round. Cabinet secretaries, we're talking a lot about them. We're talking about their appointments coming up. We talked about a few of the players.
They're really underrated, Zane.
Oh, okay,
I think a cabinet secretary can absolutely change the course of an administration.
I can see the hair dye, Corey. I can see the hair dye from here. Stephen Carter, I guess I didn't go to you first. That's right. I'm flimsy like the American democracy. It doesn't matter. Whatever. If Corey wants to go, let him take it. Carter, overrated or underrated cabinet secretaries?
I think they're underrated. I think that they are, they're the people who are running the show, and they have to be good people again, who can actually do things. We've had 4 years of not having good cabinet secretaries, so some new cabinet secretaries who can actually do shit would be pretty amazing.
Corey, this week Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg were present for some Senate hearings that lasted 4 hours. The best tweet about it, in my mind, was someone compared Jack Dorsey to a castaway and to Mark Zuckerberg as the robot butler that he built. And when you look at it, it is a perfect split screen. But Senate hearings overall, this was a story that really had to fight for its own oxygen and its time in the sun, despite the fact that you had two of the biggest tech CEOs testifying to the Senate. So overall, Senate hearings, as you see them, Corey, overrated or underrated?
I think they're rated about right. I think they matter. Obviously, we've seen some fireworks at Senate hearings, and we got to have a great conversation about Zuckerberg, the android, again, which is always fun. Always enjoy that content. I don't know. I mean, there's this big pageantry around them. There's this big talk, oh, they're going to go to the Senate. But the reality is, there have been many, many times that has actually resulted in big moments. Mm-hmm. So you can't really say that they're underrated.
Carter, are you going to say they're underrated?
No, I totally agree with Corey, which is just, as always, very upsetting for me.
So you think they're rated just fine. Corey, I'm going to go to you again on this. One of the biggest conversations that is happening in the Biden staffing world right now is who to select as their next press secretary. Part of it is because it's an important role and just like the other staffing roles in the White House. The other part, because obviously the media is looking for a bit of a change and someone who might maybe answer some of their questions. So the concept of press secretary, is that an overrated or underrated role in your mind?
I think it's overrated these days, for sure. Yes, we get to know them. Yes, we understand who they are as a personality, but we're in a different paradigm here. The ability to access the president is greater than it's ever been. You read stories from the early 20th century, Woodrow Wilson bringing in reporters, and then getting mad because they didn't write exactly what he wanted. But we've come a long way from these were the gatekeepers. And so, if you wanted to have the information, your odds of seeing the president were like a once a year thing, and then the regular press conferences, even they literally tweet all of the time. They have scrums every time they go to any kind of event. The press secretary is one of those things that Joe Biden has mentioned. Yeah, we're going back to the daily briefings because I think that's part of his overall message about normalcy. But can we really say that we felt like we lost a lot when they didn't have those daily briefings from a sociopathic, lying White House? I don't think they contribute as much as they did in the past when that was the control channel through which we got information about day-to-day activity in the White House.
Carter, press secretaries, overrated or underrated?
Underrated, because we see what happens when you don't have a truth-telling press secretary. Now, there's some dancing around the truth. There's some spinning of truth. There's some shaping of the truth. But at least a proper press secretary that does his or her job by standing up and facing the press and speaking directly to the people on a daily and timely basis in full sentences and sometimes even paragraphs that go beyond a 280 character tweet. actually does have impact on the world, not just on the Americans. So I think that they're tremendously underrated.
Carter, I'm sticking with you for our final one. Presidential memoirs. Of course, Barack Obama's we talked about, but as their impact and their value, we've talked about in the past, tell-all sort of books. We've talked about, journalistic insider accounts, but presidential memoirs, overrated or underrated?
I think they're overrated. They're hard to read most of the time, or if they're not hard to read, they're written at like a 7th grade level. So, for me, the ghostwriter throws a bunch of things together. They're never edited properly. They're the thickest books you have on your shelf. And, frankly, they're not that much fun to read. I think they're totally overrated.
Corey, overrated or underrated?
Well, I do think they're overrated. They can be interesting. They can tell you a bit about the person in a way that you maybe didn't know before. But these are also some of the most exposed, most written about people on the planet, if not the most written about people on the planet. So how much really gets added to the discourse that wasn't reported before? You maybe get to understand the emotions they were going through, but you're not going to learn a lot of new things from a presidential memoir.
We will leave it there. That is You the People for this week. Thank you to Corey Hogan and the Metaphor Machine, Stephen Carter. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, explain this to me now. Why are you stuck in bed with this corpse?
Yeah, and is it like
Because
a Godfather thing where the corpse it's like the horse's head arrives in your bed and you wake up?
So Donald Trump comes in and he's the hot young thing, and he gets into bed and he's lying in bed, and it's like John and Yoko, in bed in Montreal. And all of a sudden, in comes Lindsey Graham and slides right in, snuggles right up, and then comes the entire Republican Party. They're all in the king-size bed all together. And then they pull back the covers, and there's the rotting corpse of Donald Trump destroying.
You just said he got into the bed.
This is time. There's time passes.
Wait, Corey.
Time passes.
Time passes. Hold on.
Time passes. Let me tell my story.
How much time passes, Carter?
Right now, Donald Trump is dead, and he is, and the maggots from his rotting corpse are spreading amongst the Republicans that were lying in bed with him. None more so than Lindsey Graham, who was snuggled up to him in some sort of spooning position with his ass right up next to the corpse. That's how it happened.
So, but why can't they get out of the bed?
Yeah.
Why are they stuck in it?
Because they're too fucking stupid. And now they're in bed with a corpse. I don't know how many times I have to explain this. It's perfectly simple.